The hospice room smelled like antiseptic and lilies. My husband Robert's hand was still warm in mine when I heard my daughter's heels clicking down the hallway. He'd been gone 45 minutes. 45 minutes since his last breath, since I'd kissed his forehead and whispered that I'd love him forever. I hadn't even let go yet. Victoria appeared in the doorway, not alone. Behind her stood Martin Fletcher, Robert's attorney for 30 years. She'd called him. My daughter had called the estate lawyer before her father's body was even cold. "Mom," she said, her voice crisp, businesslike. No tears, no red eyes, just that calculating expression I'd seen too many times lately. "Martin needs to discuss the accounts. We need to know when we can access everything." I looked up at her, still holding Robert's hand. "He's been dead less than an hour, Victoria." She glanced at her father's body like he was a piece of furniture. "I understand you're grieving, but there are practical matters. The estate needs to be settled. Martin says there are time-sensitive issues with the investment accounts." Martin at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm so sorry for your loss. Victoria insisted—" "How much?" Victoria interrupted, looking directly at the lawyer. "How much are we looking at total?" "My name is Caroline Patterson, and I'm 73 years old. I'm sitting here today recording this story because I want you to know that sometimes the people who should love you the most are the ones who hurt you deepest. Before I continue, I'd love to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city and state in the comments. It helps me know I'm not alone in this. Now, let me tell you how I got to that horrible moment in the hospice room and what I did about it. Robert and I met in 1968 in Boston, Massachusetts, at a library of all places. I was 21, studying to be a teacher. He was 24, already making waves as a young investor. We married in 1970 in a small ceremony at Old North Church. Victoria came along in 1972, and for a while, we were happy, genuinely happy. Robert built his wealth slowly, carefully. He wasn't flashy. We lived in a comfortable home in Lexington, nothing ostentatious. He drove a 10-year-old Buick. We took modest vacations. But behind the scenes, Robert was brilliant with money. By the time he was 50, his portfolio was worth several $1 million. By 65, it had grown to just over $14 million. Victoria grew up comfortable but not spoiled, or so I thought. Robert insisted she work summer jobs, that she earn her own spending money in college. She went to Boston University, graduated with a business degree, and married Todd Henshaw, a corporate attorney, in 1995. They had 2 children, my grandchildren Emma and Jack, who I absolutely adored. But something changed in Victoria around 2015. Maybe it was turning 43 and seeing friends with bigger houses, fancier cars. Maybe it was Todd's influence. He came from old money and had expensive tastes. Whatever it was, she started asking questions about the estate, about inheritance planning, about when Robert planned to retire and enjoy his money. Robert noticed it too. One night in 2016, after Victoria had spent an entire Sunday dinner talking about estate taxes and trust funds, he said to me, "Caroline, when did our daughter become so obsessed with money?" I didn't have an answer. The Victoria I'd raised had been compassionate, thoughtful. She'd volunteered at homeless shelters in college. She'd wanted to join the Peace Corps before she met Todd. Now, at 44, she was calculating her inheritance before her father was even sick. The visits became more frequent but shorter. She'd drop by, ask how Robert was doing, then somehow steer every conversation toward finances. "Dad, have you updated your will recently?" "Mom, do you have a financial advisor? Have you considered long-term care insurance? It would protect the assets." Assets. That's what Robert had become to her. Not Dad, not the man who'd stayed up all night when she had croup as a baby, who'd taught her to ride a bike, who'd walked her down the aisle. Assets. Robert's diagnosis came in March 2018. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctor gave him 6 months to a year. Robert took the news calmly. That was his way. He immediately started getting his affairs in order, not because he was afraid, but because he was practical. Victoria's first question when we told her, "Did they catch it early enough? What's the survival rate? but I saw it in her eyes. She was calculating timelines, probability, outcomes. My husband was dying, and my daughter was running actuarial tables in her head. The next 18 months were hell. Chemotherapy, radiation, clinical trials. Robert fought hard, not because he was afraid of death, but because he wanted more time with me, with Emma and Jack. He wanted to see Jack graduate high school, to watch Emma's last soccer season. Victoria visited, but always briefly. She'd sit for 15 minutes, pat Robert's hand, say the right words, but I noticed she always found time to speak privately with Martin whenever he visited with updated documents. She'd corner him in the hallway, asking questions I couldn't quite hear. Todd came even less frequently. "Work's crazy," he'd say. But Robert's nurse told me she'd overheard Todd on the phone in the parking lot once, talking about waiting it out and liquidity events. My grandchildren, though, Emma and Jack, were angels. 16 and 14, they'd come every week, sometimes without their parents. They'd sit with Robert, tell him about school, about their lives. Emma would read to him when he was too tired to watch TV. Jack would just hold his hand. Those kids understood love in a way their parents had forgotten. In August 2019, Robert took a turn for the worse. The doctors said weeks, maybe days. We moved him to hospice care at Massachusetts General Hospital. The staff there was extraordinary. Kind, patient, treating Robert with such dignity. Robert held on for 3 weeks. 3 weeks where I barely left his side. I slept in the chair next to his bed. I held his hand. I told him stories about our life together, about the good times, the adventures, the quiet Sunday mornings, reading the paper together. Victoria came twice in those 3 weeks, once for 20 minutes, once for half an hour. She brought flowers both times, expensive arrangements that Robert couldn't even see clearly anymore. She'd ask how he was doing, but she was always checking her phone, always distracted. Emma and Jack came every other day. They'd skip soccer practice, study sessions, time with friends just to be with their grandfather. That meant everything to Robert. In one of his last lucid moments, he whispered to me, "At least we got the grandkids right." On September 14th, 2019, at 2:47 in the afternoon, Robert passed away. I was holding his hand, singing softly to him, our wedding song, Unchained Melody. His breathing just stopped, peaceful, quiet. The nurse confirmed it. Time of death, 2:47 p.m. I sat there, still holding his hand, crying silently. The nurse asked if I wanted to call anyone. I said yes. I'd call Victoria and my sister Janet. But before I could even reach for my phone, I heard those heels in the hallway. Victoria burst in at 3:32 p.m. I know because I looked at the clock, stunned that she'd arrived so fast. She must have been nearby, waiting. And she wasn't alone. Martin Fletcher was right behind her, briefcase in hand, looking profoundly uncomfortable. "Mom," Victoria said, barely glancing at her father's body, "Martin needs to discuss the accounts. We need to know when we can access everything." I just stared at her. My husband, her father, was lying right there. Still warm. I was still holding his hand. "Victoria, your father just died." "I know, Mom, and I'm devastated." She didn't look devastated. She looked impatient. "But there are time-sensitive financial issues." Martin explained that some of the accounts have beneficiary designations that need immediate attention. The investment portfolios... "Stop." My voice was quiet but firm. "Stop talking about money while your father's body is still in this room." Martin cleared his throat. "Mrs. Patterson, I apologize. I told Victoria this could wait, but she insisted." "How much?" Victoria asked, cutting him off. "Just tell us the total. We need to understand what we're dealing with." Something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked, like ice on a pond, that first fracture before everything shatters. I looked down at Robert's peaceful face. Then I looked at our daughter, the stranger who'd replaced the little girl I'd raised. This woman who couldn't wait 45 minutes before demanding her inheritance. "Get out," I said quietly. "Mom, don't be dramatic. We're all adults here." "Get out!" I stood up, still holding Robert's hand with one of mine, pointing at the door with the other. "Get out of this room right now!" Victoria's face flushed. "You're being unreasonable. Martin came all the way from downtown." "I didn't ask him to come. You called him. You called the estate lawyer before you called me to see if I needed anything, if I needed support, if I needed my daughter." Tears were streaming down my face now. "Your father is dead, Victoria. Dead, and all you can think about is money." Martin was already backing toward the door. "I'll wait in my office. Mrs. Patterson, again, my deepest condolences. Call me when you're ready." Victoria didn't move. "Mom, I understand you're upset, but no, you don't understand. You haven't understood for years. Now get out before I have security remove you." She left finally, her heels clicking angrily down the hallway. I sank back into the chair and broke down completely, sobbing over Robert's hand. The nurse came back in, put her arm around my shoulders, didn't say anything. She didn't need to. I sat with Robert for another 2 hours. I wasn't ready to let go. The hospital staff was incredibly kind. They never rushed me, never made me feel like I had to leave. Finally, around 6 p.m., I kissed his forehead one last time and left. My sister Janet met me at the hospital entrance. She'd driven up from Providence the moment I'd called her. She took me home, made me tea, sat with me while I cried. She didn't mention the incident with Victoria, though I'm sure the hospital staff had gossiped about it. Victoria called the next morning. "Mom, we need to talk about yesterday. I think you overreacted." Overreacted. My husband of 49 years had just died, and I'd overreacted. "Victoria, I'm not discussing this right now." "When then?" "Because the estate needs to be settled. There are tax implications, transfer deadlines." I hung up. I actually hung up on my own daughter. The funeral was 4 days later. We'd planned it together, Robert and I, months earlier when he'd first gotten sick. He wanted something simple at the funeral home, nothing religious. Robert had been agnostic. He wanted people to share memories, to celebrate his life, not mourn his death. About 70 people came. Friends, colleagues, neighbors. Emma and Jack sat on either side of me, holding my hands. Victoria sat next to Todd, checking her phone repeatedly during the service. I saw her texting at one point and felt sick. People shared beautiful memories. Robert's college roommate told stories about their adventures backpacking through Europe in 1966. His business partner of 30 years talked about Robert's integrity, how he'd rather lose money than compromise his principles. My sister talked about how Robert had helped her through her divorce, had been more of a brother than a brother-in-law. Victoria didn't speak, didn't share a single memory of her father. After the service, during the reception, I overheard her talking to Martin in the corner. They thought they were being discreet, but I have excellent hearing for 73. "So, the will reading is scheduled for next week?" Victoria was asking. "Yes, Tuesday at 2 p.m. And everything goes to Mom, I assume, but with me as secondary beneficiary? Victoria, I really can't discuss—" "Come on, Martin, I'm family. Just give me the basics. What's the total estate value? 14 million, 15. I walked away before I heard Martin's response. I couldn't listen anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that moment in the hospice room. 45 minutes. My daughter couldn't wait 45 minutes. I got up around 2 a.m. and sat in Robert's study. Everything was exactly as he'd left it. His reading glasses on the desk, his coffee mug. I hadn't had the heart to move it. His leather chair still held the impression of his body. I opened his desk drawer and found the folder he'd prepared for me. Caroline Important Documents, written in his neat handwriting. Inside was everything. Insurance policies, account information, passwords, and a sealed envelope with my name on it. I opened it with shaking hands. "My dearest Caroline, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm so sorry to leave you. These last 49 years have been the greatest gift of my life. You made everything worth it. Every struggle, every challenge, every ordinary Tuesday morning. I need to talk to you about Victoria. I've seen the change in her, same as you. I've watched our daughter become someone I don't recognize, someone obsessed with money and status. It breaks my heart. I've thought long and hard about what to do with the estate. The traditional thing would be to leave it to you with Victoria as secondary beneficiary. But Caroline, I don't think that's right anymore. I've watched how she treats you, how she treats money, how she's already counting an inheritance I haven't even left yet. I've left instructions with Martin about what I want done with the estate after you're gone. It's not going to Victoria. I've made provisions for Emma and Jack, education trusts that she can't touch. But the bulk of it? I want it to go somewhere meaningful. I trust you completely. If you want to change my wishes, you can. The final decision is yours, but I'm asking you to think carefully about what's right, not just what's expected. I love you, Caroline. I always will. Be strong, be yourself, and don't let anyone, including our daughter, make you feel guilty for doing what you know is right. Yours forever, Robert. I read that letter 5 times that night. By the time the sun came up, I knew what I had to do. I called Martin on Monday morning. I need to see you before the will reading tomorrow. Of course, Mrs. Patterson. What time works for you? As early as possible. And Martin, I want to make some changes. There was a pause. What kind of changes? I want to add a codicil to Robert's will. Is that possible this late? It is, but Mrs. Patterson, can I ask what kind of changes you're considering? I'll explain when I see you. Can you be available at 9 a.m.? I'll clear my schedule. I spent the rest of Monday preparing. I made copies of text messages from Victoria, the ones asking about account access, about estate value, about liquidity timelines. I printed emails. I wrote down every incident I could remember of Victoria's behavior over the last 4 years, dates, and details. When I arrived at Martin's office Tuesday morning, he could tell I meant business. Mrs. Patterson, before we begin, I want you to know that any changes you make today will be legally binding, and given the family dynamics, there could be significant fallout. I understand. Let me tell you what I want to do. I laid out everything for Martin. The incident in the hospice room, the years of Victoria treating her father's money like her own, the funeral reception conversation I'd overheard, Robert's letter. Martin, I want to exercise my right as surviving spouse to redirect the estate distribution. He nodded slowly. You have that power under Massachusetts law. Robert's will leaves everything to you with full discretion. What are you thinking? I want the entire estate, minus the education trusts Robert set up for Emma and Jack, donated to Massachusetts General Hospital, specifically to their oncology research and hospice care programs. Martin's eyes widened. That's approximately $12 million, Mrs. Patterson. Are you absolutely certain? Completely certain. The hospital staff was extraordinary to Robert. They treated him with dignity and compassion. They tried everything to save him, and their hospice program gave him a peaceful death. That's worth more than giving millions to a daughter who saw her father as a bank account. Victoria will contest this. Let her try. I'm of sound mind. I'm not being coerced. I'm making this decision freely because it's what Robert wanted and what's right. Martin was quiet for a long moment. Mrs. Patterson, I've been a lawyer for 38 years. I've seen a lot of family ugliness around money. But I want you to understand, this will destroy your relationship with your daughter. Martin, my daughter destroyed our relationship when she called you before her father was cold. I'm just making it official. We spent the next 2 hours drafting the codicil. Martin had it witnessed and notarized. It was legal, binding, and final. The will reading was scheduled for 2 p.m. Martin had invited Victoria, Todd, Emma, Jack, my sister Janet, and me. It was standard. He'd read the will, distribute some personal effects, and explain the financial arrangements. Victoria arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in a black Chanel suit that probably cost $5,000. Todd wore a custom-tailored suit. They looked like they were attending a business meeting, not a will reading. Emma and Jack came in quietly, still visibly grieving. Emma hugged me tight. "How are you holding up, Grandma?" "I'm okay, sweetheart. How are you two doing?" "We miss Grandpa," Jack said, his voice thick. "It doesn't feel real." "I know, honey. I know." Victoria barely acknowledged her own children. She was busy whispering to Todd, probably discussing their plans for their money. Janet arrived last, gave me a knowing look. I'd told her everything. She was the only one who knew what was about to happen. Martin cleared his throat. "Thank you all for coming. I know this is a difficult time. I'll try to make this as straightforward as possible." He began reading the will. Personal effects first. Robert's watch to Jack, his cufflinks to Todd, some jewelry to Emma, his books to me. Victoria looked impatient, drumming her manicured nails on the armrest. Then Martin got to the financial section. The estate of Robert James Patterson, valued at approximately $14.2 million, is left in its entirety to his wife, Caroline Marie Patterson, with full discretionary power over distribution. Victoria relaxed visibly. Of course it went to me. That was standard. She'd get it when I died. But Martin wasn't finished. However, Martin continued, Mrs. Patterson has exercised her discretionary power and has executed a codicil, signed and witnessed yesterday, September 23, 2019. The codicil reads as follows. Victoria leaned forward, suddenly alert. Martin's voice was steady and professional. I, Caroline Marie Patterson, being of sound mind and acting of my own free will, hereby direct that the entire estate of my late husband, Robert James Patterson, excluding the education trusts previously established for Emma Patterson Henshaw and Jack Michael Henshaw, be donated to Massachusetts General Hospital, specifically designated for oncology research and hospice care programs. The silence in the room was deafening. Victoria's face went white, then red, then purple. What? Martin continued reading. This decision is made in recognition of the extraordinary care my husband received at Massachusetts General Hospital, and in memory of his life and values. The donation is to be made in full within 90 days of this reading, with no portion retained except for estate taxes and legal fees. What? Victoria was on her feet. Mom, what the hell is this? Sit down, Victoria, I said calmly. You can't do this. That's Dad's money. That's our money. No, I said, my voice steady. It was your father's money. Now it's my money, and I'm donating it. Todd stood up too. Mrs. Patterson, you can't be serious. There are tax implications here, estate planning considerations. I'm completely serious, and I've considered everything. Victoria was shaking with rage. This is insane. You're being vindictive. Martin, she can't be in her right mind. Mrs. Patterson is absolutely in her right mind, Martin said firmly. I spent 2 hours with her yesterday. She's lucid, rational, and determined. This codicil is legally binding. Mom, why are you doing this? Victoria's voice cracked, but not with grief, with fury. Because 45 minutes, Victoria. Your father was dead 45 minutes, and you were asking about the accounts. That's what this is about? One comment I made while I was in shock? It wasn't one comment. It was 4 years of treating your father like an ATM. 4 years of asking about the estate, about inheritance, about money. 4 years of 5-minute visits where you spent more time with the lawyer than with your dying father. I was grieving. No, Victoria, you were calculating. There's a difference. Before I continue with what happened next, I want to ask you something. If you're finding this story powerful, if it's resonating with you, please subscribe to this channel. These stories matter, and your support helps me keep telling them. Emma and Jack were staring at their mother with wide eyes. Emma spoke up, her voice small. Mom, is that true? Were you really just thinking about money? Victoria whirled on her daughter. Don't you dare judge me. That money was supposed to be your inheritance too, your college funds, your future. Grandpa already set up our college funds, Jack said quietly. He told us about it last year. He made sure we'd be taken care of. Victoria's mouth opened and closed. She hadn't known about that. Robert made those trusts years ago, I said, without telling you because he didn't trust you not to try to access them. So what do we get? Nothing? Todd demanded. 49 years of marriage and you're giving it all away? Emma and Jack each have $500,000 education trusts that mature when they turn 18, I said. That was your father's wish, and I'm honoring it. Beyond that, the estate goes where it can do real good. This is ridiculous, Victoria was pacing now. We're contesting this. Martin, what are the grounds for contesting? Martin sighed. You can try, but you won't win. Mrs. Patterson has full legal right to dispose of the estate as she sees fit. She's demonstrably of sound mind. There's no coercion, no fraud, no undue influence. She's being vindictive. That's grounds. Actually, it's not. Unless you can prove incompetence or manipulation, which you can't, this will stand. Victoria turned to me, her face twisted with anger. Fine. You want to be vindictive? Two can play that game. You'll never see Emma and Jack again. Never. Emma gasped. Mom, no. Yes, Victoria snapped. We're done with your grandmother. She clearly doesn't care about family. I felt my heart break a little, but I kept my voice steady. Victoria, using your children as weapons against me only proves that I made the right decision. Come on, Todd, kids, we're leaving. Victoria grabbed her purse. Emma didn't move. No. Excuse me. I said no, Mom. I'm not leaving Grandma, not because of money. Emma Patterson Henshaw, you will do as you're told. I'm 16 years old. I can decide who I want to spend time with. Emma's voice was shaking but firm. And I want to spend time with Grandma. She's the only one who actually cared about Grandpa in the end. All you cared about was his money. Jack stood up too. Emma's right. I'm staying with Grandma. I've never been prouder of my grandchildren than in that moment. Victoria's face was ugly with rage. Fine. Stay with her. Live with her. See if I care. But don't come crying to me when you realize she threw away your inheritance. We don't want an inheritance bought with disrespecting Grandpa, Jack said quietly. Victoria stormed out, Todd following. The door slammed so hard the windows rattled. The room was silent. Then Janet started laughing, not happy laughter, but the kind that comes when something is so awful it circles back to absurd. Well, she said, that went well. Martin was shaking his head. Mrs. Patterson, I have to say, in all my years practicing law, I've never seen anything quite like this. Is it really legal? I asked, suddenly uncertain. Can she really contest it? She can try, but she'll lose. You have absolute discretion under Massachusetts law as the surviving spouse. Robert's will gave you that power explicitly. And frankly, after what I just witnessed, I don't think any judge in the state would side with her. Emma and Jack were sitting on either side of me now, both holding my hands. Are you sure about this, Grandma? Emma asked softly. That's a lot of money to give away. I'm sure, sweetheart. Your grandfather and I lived comfortably our whole lives. We never needed millions. The hospital can use it to help other families, to do research, to provide care. That honors your grandfather's memory better than buying luxury cars and vacation homes. The donation was finalized 6 weeks later. Massachusetts General Hospital held a small ceremony. They named a wing of the Hospice Care Center after Robert, the Robert J. Patterson Memorial Hospice Wing. They also established the Robert and Caroline Patterson Oncology Research Fund. I attended the ceremony with Emma and Jack. The hospital administrators were incredibly gracious. They showed us how the money would be used: new equipment, expanded research programs, enhanced hospice care services. They introduced us to patients and families who would benefit directly from the donation. One woman, maybe 50 years old, approached me with tears in her eyes. My husband is in the hospice program right now. He has weeks left. The care here is extraordinary. They treat him like he matters, like he's not just another patient. Your donation is going to help so many families like mine. Thank you. That's when I knew I'd made the right choice. That woman's gratitude meant more than any amount of money in my bank account. Victoria didn't speak to me for 8 months. Not a word, not a text, nothing. But Emma and Jack came over every week. Emma was 17 now, preparing for college applications. Jack was 15, playing varsity baseball. They'd tell me about their lives, their dreams, their friends. Sometimes they'd mention their mother in passing, always carefully watching my reaction. She's still angry, Emma told me one afternoon in May 2020, 10 months after Robert's death. She talks about you sometimes, says you were vindictive, that you stole her inheritance. How do you feel about what I did? I asked. Emma thought for a moment. I think Grandpa would be proud of you, and I think Mom needed to learn that love isn't about money. In June 2020, Victoria finally reached out. A text message. We need to talk. We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop in Cambridge. She looked tired, older than her 48 years. We sat across from each other, both holding untouched lattes. I'm not here to apologize, she said finally. I still think what you did was cruel. Okay, I said. I wasn't going to argue. But the kids miss you. Emma's leaving for college in September. Jack needs his grandmother. I'm not willing to keep them from you anymore. I never kept anyone from anyone, Victoria. You did that. She flinched. Are you really not going to give me anything, even now? The estate is gone. It's been donated. There's nothing to give. You could have kept something. You could have. I could have what? Funded your lifestyle? Paid for your expensive tastes? No, Victoria, the money went where it could do good. She was quiet for a long time. I did love Dad, you know. I got caught up in things. Todd's family has so much, and I felt like we were always behind, always scrambling. I thought Dad's money would fix that. Money doesn't fix anything, sweetheart. It just reveals who you really are. She stood up. I should go, but Emma wants to see you. Jack, too. Will you still be their grandmother? Always, I said. I'll always be their grandmother. She nodded and left. It wasn't reconciliation, not really, but it was a start. Emma went to Brown University that fall, her grandfather's alma mater. The education trust covered everything: tuition, room, board, books. She called me every week, telling me about her classes, her friends, her life. Jack stayed in touch too. He'd come over after school sometimes, just to hang out. We'd watch baseball games together, make dinner, talk about everything and nothing. Victoria and I found a kind of peace, though it was fragile. We saw each other at family events. Emma's graduation, Jack's baseball games. We were cordial, even friendly. But the warmth was gone. She'd destroyed that in the hospice room, and I don't think either of us knew how to rebuild it. In 2023, Massachusetts General Hospital invited me back for an update on the research fund. They'd made significant progress on several treatment protocols, partially funded by Robert's donation. They showed me charts, statistics, patient outcomes, lives saved, families given more time together. Your husband's legacy is alive in this work, the head researcher told me. Every day we think about the Pattersons and their generosity. That's Robert's real inheritance. Not money in a bank account, not properties or investments, but hope for families facing what we faced. Dignity for patients in their final days. Research that might save lives. I'm 78 now. I still live in our house in Lexington, the same house Robert and I bought in 1975. It's too big for one person, but it's full of memories. Emma brings her fiancé to visit. They're getting married next summer. Jack is finishing college, studying to be a teacher. They're good kids, those two. They turned out right despite everything. Sometimes I think about that moment in the hospice room. 45 minutes. That's all it took to change everything. 45 minutes between my husband's death and my daughter's greed revealing itself. People ask me if I regret it, if I wish I'd kept the money, if I wish I'd tried harder to mend things with Victoria. The answer is no. I sleep well at night. I know I honored Robert's wishes and his memory. I know the money is doing real good in the world. Victoria and I have a relationship now, but it's different. Surface level. We exchange pleasantries. She sends Christmas cards, but the deep bond between mother and daughter? That died in the hospice room along with Robert. Maybe that's sad. Maybe it's just reality. But I've learned that sometimes the right choice isn't the easy choice. Sometimes honoring the dead means disappointing the living. And sometimes family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who cares, who remembers that people matter more than money. Robert would have been proud of what I did. I know that. And in the end, that's what matters most. The man I loved for 49 years, the man who knew me better than anyone, would have stood beside me in that choice. That's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything.